a fine how do you do on this lovely Wednesday. My name is Mike Hess. I am the COPD dude. I run the group COPD Navigator on Facebook, and on a good day, I'm in charge of the YouTube channel for COPD Navigator. This has been a weird day. So, if you were watching the show yesterday, we had a fairly big shifting of the studio here because we wanted to accommodate Kelly Becker, my wife, and nurse practitioner extraordinaire, as well as Emma Hess, my daughter, and social media intern extraordinaire, who unfortunately was not able to hop down here right now because today's her birthday and we're giving her the day off. So, but in the reconfiguration here, apparently something got who knows what, but there were some upstream problems, there were some local problems, and it was just enough time for my neighbor to start cutting his grass. So we might be able to get a little bit of noise in there. Quite a way to spend Emma's birthday and National Nurses Day, kicking off Nurses Week here in the U.S. Big shout out to all the nurses out there taking care of all of our chronic respiratory folks out there in the hospital, in the offices, in the clinics, at the front lines, everywhere, in and out of a pandemic. Just like my RT friends, our nurses are part of the very core of healthcare. So thank you very much, nurses. Really appreciate all your efforts, and be sure to thank a nurse today. I actually part of I really think what went wrong was I made a joke about when I first was able to start getting some signal. I made a joke about ghosts in the machine, perhaps one of them being Florence Nightingale's ghost. And then things really went down the tubes. So never mess around with the ghost of Florence Nightingale on National Nurses Day. So, but we are here. We are live. Things are actually working okay for right now. Hopefully we'll stay that way. I do kind of like this new configuration. Things are looking a little bit different. Not quite where I want it to be, but hopefully everybody can hear okay. The meters are running. All that stuff is working okay. I guess I could take a quick listen here and then jump right into all the feedback and such. Okay for right now. Hopefully we'll stay that way. I do kind of like... Okay, so that seemed okay. Hopefully the volume is working okay for everybody. If not, let me know. The microphone is a little bit farther away than usual, but I have a tendency to underestimate this mic anyway, so it is what it is. So, if you're new to the program, first off, I'm going to say hello to Shar. And hopefully you're still sticking in there. And I know Joe was checking in from Georgia at some point. Yeah, here we go. Isn't technology great except when it isn't? Absolutely. I know Joe been with us for a little while now. I believe he checked in from Georgia all three times, all three false starts, accounting for 15 yards of American football there. All three times we had the false start here. Technology is fantastic, especially when you're a tweak person like me. Almost said tweaker, but that has a whole other connotation in healthcare. But when you're developing this kind of new technology, I don't even want to say that because it's not. I'm not reinventing the wheel or anything like that here. But when you're trying to adapt all this stuff and trying to make it so that it works well and it looks good and everything else, you gotta. Well, maybe I can do it a little bit better. Maybe I can do it a little bit better. Maybe I can do it a little bit better, and then you break it. And that's kind of where we were. So hopefully this is going to be a little bit better. I like the fact that as much as I love my my posters that are off to this side now, they did give me a little bit of glare. The trade-off to having good light was to have good glare. So having a different kind of background here, hopefully may even be able to get some improvements going. This is a nice area for a green screen. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully it'll work. John Linnell checking in also. No ghosts. Nurses are certainly real, and Florence was real. of course, but hopefully she's not haunting too many people these days. John's sister-in-law is their county nurse in Wisconsin, I think. We have learned that during this whole pandemic thing, I have lost my sense of time, any sense of time, and perhaps more disappointingly, any sense of geography. You are actually looking at a two-time local winner, district winner of the National Geographic Geography B. Made it to the state finals twice. Used to be good at geography, not so much anymore apparently. So, yes, it is. All right. I want to say hello to Octavia, checking in from the West Coast. Nice to see you, Octavia. Okay, so we just had a whole bunch of alerts pop up there. Sorry about that. Octavia, one of our original COPD navigators in what is now COPD Navigator discussion group. As we have kind of branched out into some of the other media things here, we discovered that the group where it all started about 6 years ago, that has always been COPD Navigator, and it has always been closed so that you don't have all your stuff being broadcast out to Facebook in general. But we also wanted to start doing these videos and have other kinds of methods out there so people could find this stuff more easily and not have to go through the whole group process and everything. So I also developed a page, and then it has gotten a little bit confusing, so we've tried to straighten that out a little bit. But Octavia was certainly one of the first people in our COPD Navigator group, and I really appreciate her sharing her story, as all of our 2,000 members do. We've got people with COPD, we've got caregivers, we've got clinicians of many different stripes, including our beloved nurses. We've got everybody sharing their journey, sharing their expertise, sharing their experiences, and helping everybody get along the path to being a true equal partner in your care. Visions of Bob Greasy from the real ghost of the recently dearly departed Don Shula. Of course, arguably most well known for the 72 Dolphins, undefeated, Super Bowl champions. And yes, Coach Shula did recently pass away within the last 2 days, I believe. Was that yesterday? Day before? But not recent, or not definitely recently, not long ago. So maybe he's yelling at me for not watching as much football as I used to, and as perhaps I should. So. But on to today's business. Again, if you are not like John and not like Octavia, and you are new to the program, new to what we do here, this is your time to ask questions about COPD, to share your stories about COPD, to let us know what can be done better. Of course, we have lots of stuff that we can do better, but as far as media offerings, curious to know what you need to be a better partner in your care. We cannot offer medical advice, of course, but what we can do is give you expertise into, or an insight into, best practices, so that you can then go back to your clinical team and say, hey, can we try this? Hey, can we try that? Why haven't we done this, or why haven't we done this kind of testing, or what do you think of these lung valves and all that kind of stuff? We talk about all kinds of stuff on the program and in the group. So if you're not a member of the group, please feel free to go to the first place to go is to search for COPD Navigator. Whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, that gets you to one place or another. Our COPD Navigator page is kind of our home base on Facebook. At that spot, there is a link to the group, where if you want to get a little bit more in-depth discussion and be a part of that community, we certainly welcome in anybody who has an interest in COPD, and the more stories we have to tell, the better. But this is, again, your time to share a lot of these, a lot of your comments and a lot of questions, all that sort of thing. So I'm happy to get all that going. One of the things we've been doing during the pandemic is we have shifted our every other week program into an everyday model. So we've been, when there aren't ghosts of coaches or nurses or whomever floating around in the equipment here, We try to go live about 4 p.m. Eastern Time every weekday during probably the next couple of weeks here until we get into a little bit more clarity as to what our Michigan pandemic is looking like. And then we'll see what happens. Been talking too much today already. I need to get a little bit more oxygen in my system. But while you're getting a lot of those questions and answers and stories and all that stuff ready, one of the things we like to do, and I was hoping to get this done beforehand, before everything went to heck, is on Wednesdays we play harmonica. As we have discussed many times, including the last 3 or 4 Wednesdays, the harmonica is an excellent tool to help with breathing techniques, to help Joe, I'm seeing you before I get too far, before I get back on the train here. Yes, I have called myself a mucus dude. If you, I recently discovered you can't really change your YouTube username. You can change the channel name, but you can't really change the username. And so sometimes if you're looking to share COPD Navigator, you will come up with a link that says Mucophile. And if you find me on Twitter, or you'll find COPD Navigator, and you'll also find my Twitter account at Mucophile, because I thought it was kind of a clever thing. Because as a respiratory therapist, mucus is, as we say, our bread and butter. And I know somebody who likes mushrooms is a mycophile. I happened to see that on I believe it was a TV guide one day, and I thought, hey, that'd be a fun brand. And that was my original brand before I was the COPD Navigator, and certainly before I was the COPD dude. So, a subject for discussion: pulmonary toilet. That's actually a pretty good segue as we get into some of the harmonica stuff. Oftentimes, switch over here because I don't have my stuff all sorted out like I like it so yet. Ooh. All right, and I'm gonna check to see if the microphone's still working. Yep, microphone's still working. Last time we moved the microphone, whole thing petered out on us then too. But when we talk pulmonary toilet, it is a less nice way to say pulmonary hygiene. We talk a lot about pulmonary toilet. It's a kind of an older school term. I don't want to say old school, but it's an older school term for making sure, especially in the hospital, we want to make sure you're doing your coughing, your deep breathing. Sometimes you have stuff like this called an aerobica. Oops, got a little excited there. Zoom's a little different now. This device is what we call oscillatory PEP, or oscillatory positive expiratory pressure. What this does is, when you blow through it, gives you a little bit of resistance, gives you a little bit of vibration to help knock loose some of that phlegm, that mucus, that junk, whatever you want to call it, and get that flowing a little bit better. This works rather well. They can be a little bit hard to come by. They are technically a piece of medical equipment, although it does appear that you can get them on Amazon. I think we discovered that last week, toward the end of last week. You can get some of these things on Amazon. You can get similar devices like the acapella device. You can get a thing called the lung flute, which I think is a little more vibration or musical harmonic vibration than actual like vibration. But the end result is the same. We want to make sure that you are keeping your airways clean and clear and keeping as much of your lung units, your alveoli, those little air sacs where the good air goes in and the bad air goes out, in play as possible. Another way to do that, and one of these days I actually find that presentation so I can load it up and show you guys the pictures that I have. These things work great, but they're not a lot of fun generally. I mean, this is a chore. This is a task. This is something that you have to do, and it's not always a lot of fun, believe it or not. And that's actually something else that kind of came out today. Is one of my kids is while we're out doing the remote schooling and all that stuff, they're not really doing super well with some of their assignments because they don't like to do them on the computer or in general. But that's why we have to have a little bit more enticement. We can do a carrot or we can do a stick. And a lot of times when it comes to medicine, we want to do a carrot. We want to do something a little bit more fun. Enter the harmonica. The harmonica is a little bit more fun, a little bit more easier to do, a little bit more enticing. It doesn't give us quite as much vibration as this does, so it might not be as good with actually knocking some of those secretions loose. But you're going to stick with it a little bit more in all likelihood because it's kind of fun to do. We have across the country, the COPD Foundation, of which I am one of the state advocacy captains, has a variety of harmonicas for health programs that you can find and kind of do in addition to a pulmonary rehab activity or that sort of thing. And just I have one thing, a task for myself that I want to do real quick that I'm trying to get accomplished here. So we have these harmonica for health programs because we know that the harmonica can be a very good thing. The harmonica can be a very good thing to do socially in particular. But it can be difficult to get the program off the ground. You know, you have to find your own music, you have to do all these kind of things and all that stuff. But harmonicas, so the COPD Foundation, working along with the country music, one of the country music foundations, developed this kind of program in a box kind of deal. So you can get together and you can do harmonica stuff as a crowd. You know, again, it kind of gets things a little bit more happy and flowing and all that stuff. So, if you happen to have a harmonica on you,
wait, how am I supposed to do that?
Yeah, that should work. If you happen to have a harmonica on you, make sure that you are going and getting that out. I'm going to pull up a new window here in just a moment. Yeah, that's fine. If I can figure out where I stored some of the, well, I guess I'll just, what I will do is, everybody also, while I'm fiddling around with this stuff, everybody say hello to Emma again. We gave her the day off, but now she's back because we have a special treat for her. We're going to make it just a little bit smaller so that maybe you can actually see Emma.
Oh, your unified chat is working today.
Yes, finally the unified chat. We got rid of the inexplicable server error that was happening there. Also, we'll say hello real quick to Jerry and Linda checking in and waving, and Bob, great shirt. Thank you very much. Decided to switch things up today. I've been wearing a lot of t-shirts lately. A lot of them are orange. So I wanted to switch things up a little bit, including Bob runs our in the COPD community context, runs the Breathe Strong America, I believe is the national organization, and then the states have individual chapters, such as Breathe Strong Michigan. Puts together some fantastic educational packets and that sort of thing. So thanks for stopping by, Bob. Fun, making a joyful noise, meaning both fun and keeping airways clear. Yes. Some people may dispute the joy in harmonica, but it's one of those things that everybody at least can do as like so. what we're going to do now is we've got that off to the side. Emma, you want to peek in for just a second and wave hello?
Hi.
Emma also has Potato with her. I don't know if you can hear the very contented purring. There we go. Talk about a joyful noise, right? I need to get some of that for the Potato Cast.
Some purring.
Yes. So, without further ado, this is how Harmonicas for Health works. Emma.
Thank you. Potato thinks it's for her.
Yes, Potato is very excited about harmonicas. This gives us a good segue. This is, of course, National Asthma Awareness Month, and many folks out there with COPD also have asthma and may be sensitive to pet hair. You can kind of get desensitized to it after a while, but you can also get resensitized to it. So, we love our pets, but sometimes they don't love us as much, love our lungs as much as we might like them to. So, thank you for being an example of that, Potato. So, Emma, while you're here, do you have any other requests for harmonica song?
No.
No? All right, fair enough. I have had some suggestions in the past to get the bagpipes going. Should we get some bagpipes and maybe do bagpipes for health?
For Tommy.
Talk about needing some lung function or some endurance for that. So,
Bagpipes for Tommy's birthday.
bagpipes for Tommy's birthday. So, Kim checking in. Welcome in, Kim. Has an idea for harmonicas for health on Zoom. So, that gives me another segue to another thing that we're trying out this week, particularly tomorrow night, or specifically tomorrow night. And Shar wishes Emma a happy birthday.
Thank you.
Tomorrow night we will be having our very first COPD Navigator Ready Room, which is on Zoom. As a matter of fact, if you go to our COPD Navigator page, you can find the link to the Zoom conference. Zoom is a very easy to use platform that anybody can use on a laptop device, on a phone, which I'm realizing I have plugged in, but doesn't really do much good because in all the shifting around, I unplugged it from here. So that's been charging precisely 0 over the last half hour or so.
Way to go.
Miracle of live TV, folks. Looks like John's got a bagpipe story, but he's going to leave us hanging on that. So Zoom, you can do Zoom on your phone. You can do Zoom on your computer. I'm going to drop a link into. I'm going to try to find the link to our event tomorrow. That's in the group here. I'm going to put this. I'm going to try to find a link. Drop it in the various chats we've got going on here. Because what I would really like to do is see if this would be a beneficial kind of thing. As Kim points out, and Kim would know, she's been a stalwart of our local harmonicas programs until we had to kind of give up the ghost a little bit. It's a ghost kind of day, I guess. Ooh, still broadcasting all kinds of pages on here. So you can see this is the COPD Navigator Facebook page. That sometimes scrolls a little bit easier than other pages. Maybe it's in the events. I don't know. Here we go. We got Ready Room. Hopefully the link is in there. Yes. So we're going to... So all you'll need to do, I'm going to copy the link and paste in the watch party. Whoa. That's a nasty link.
Oh, but no, it's fine.
Well, just because it's short. So I'm going to copy the link and some other text and all that stuff. I don't know if the link will come through or not, but if you're having trouble with it, there we go. And then over in the infamous unified chat. So yeah. Basically, like I said, we're not going to be doing bagpipes. We may whip out the harmonica a little bit because what Zoom does is give us a really nice capacity to share screens a little bit more easily than we can here on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. That way it's easier to see the music. That is a potentially a really good thing. You would just have to go out and get your own harmonica, and then we would be able to do warm-ups and all that stuff as a web conference. So, but in any event, tomorrow night we're going to do kind of a trial run and see who's interested, if it's practical to do this thing, who's excited about it. Again, the nice thing about Zoom is that you can use it on a lot of different platforms. You can use it with just audio. You don't have to have video. You can do video. It's helpful to do video, but there's no requirement to it. If you go to the actual Facebook page, and I'll be posting a link to this in the group and a couple other places, you'll get all kinds of information to call in, to sign in with computers, all that kind of stuff. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time until the cows come home. So we'll see how that goes. So Mary Ann checking in with, now Mary Ann gives us, why don't we go ahead and see if she needs to take a break somewhere before things get a little, she's getting a little sneezy, getting a little allergy stuff. So, I just don't want her to be, maybe I don't necessarily want her to do her pulmonary toilet here in the studio, but anyway.
I think she's just purring too hard.
That could be. Over purring. So Marianne says, lets us know that she has fourth stage COPD, and that's actually that's something that we struggle with a lot in COPD is how do we stage that severity? It is very, very common for a lot of folks to have this whole idea of first, second, third, fourth stage COPD. And then, of course, it gets to the idea of if you're fourth stage, that there aren't any more numbers over that, so you must be end stage. And that is something that I really dislike. I dislike where that conversation goes. Because it's not necessarily the end. As John has said a couple of times when he's not talking about bagpipe stories, his goal is to, when the end comes, he wants to pass away with COPD rather than of COPD. And that's kind of the goal, I think, for a lot of folks with COPD is we get caught up in this end stage and, well, you've got X number of days left and all that stuff. And there's not an expiration date. I think this is another John thing. There's not, as you can see, what's the joke about good artists create and great artists steal or something along those lines? I steal all my best stuff from John or Jim and Mary, but mostly John. There's not an expiration date stamped on your foot or anything like that. So what I try to do is kind of steer that conversation to you have stage 4 airway obstruction, which is an actual objective spirometry measurement. Where did I put my spirometer? Here it is. We can have you do this thing where you keep blowing, keep blowing, keep blowing. That's how we measure the airflow obstruction. And sometimes we can get an idea about what we should expect or the kind of therapies we should do and that sort of thing. But what I like to look at is more along the lines of how severe are your symptoms and how severe are or how often are you ending up in the hospital, because those are really the things that are I just wondered why that just took that long to post into the meeting, I guess. All right. Those are the things that really affect therapy and really affect your expectation of longevity and all that sort of thing. As John mentions here on the Facebook feed, end stage really gets my dander up. Some clinics such as Mayo don't use stage terms. You just keep waxing eloquent. You're doing awesome. Well, thank you, John. Like I said, I have a good platform, a good original stuff, and then I like to embellish on that. And that's something that's kind of the nice thing about working in a medical school or for a medical school is I've really tried to instill that in our residents. And so when they go out into the real world, that's the one thing that I really push, because there's a lot of times where you can have differences of clinical opinion. Different research comes out all the time, but the one thing that I really kind of get on them at is when they say end stage, because it's like, no, I know people who have made it to with my usual comparison is Russell Winwood, who checks in from time to time. I don't think I've seen his name pop up yet today, but has stage 4 airway obstruction, but runs marathons. He's going to be coming and running in the Chicago Marathon next year. Whereas we have people with stage 2 obstruction because they have a different sort of COPD and different array of symptoms that are on oxygen all the time and can't walk from here to the mailbox, let alone run a marathon. So COPD severity classification has to be a lot more than just your stage. So that's my little soapbox for today. How are we managed to do this every day? Char, if you could rephrase that for me. I'm not 100% sure where you're going with that. And to give Char some time to maybe rephrase a little bit here, I'm going to fire up another harmonica song since I got no requests from the Peanut Gallery off to my left here.
Sorry, man.
I'll work on something that... earlier this week I tried this. We'll see if I got any better at it, even though I haven't really practiced much, but we'll see if this is at all recognizable. Where'd the thing go? Oh, here it is. Whoop.
She's real into the harmonica.
Come on, Potato, help me out a little bit here. John is requesting an Emma and Mike duet. Do you still have your harmonica upstairs?
No.
Go look over there and see if you can find my briefcase. All right, so we're going to try that again here.
I don't even know how the harmonica works.
Well, that's why I will teach you. If we can't track it down for today, that is our...
All right, I found the briefcase.
All right, look in there and see if you can find one of the extra harmonicas. If we can't get that done today, now we know what we're doing next week for Harmonica Day. And we'll have the boys back, too. Maybe we can get a whole ensemble going. So... Yeah, I'm a little off there, but... So how do I have the time to broadcast every day? Yes, my work has been limited because I'm one of those outpatient folks. So it has been, our clinic schedule has been a little bit weird.
I can't want it.
And Kim, I did see your request to make it a little bit bigger.
No. That makes sense.
I know we have some more upstairs somewhere, but I may not have an extra down here right now. So it looks like you might be off the hook for today, but we'll be able to pull that together for next week.
I gotta fix the
Nope.
thing.
All right. Fix what?
Well, I didn't know how to open,
Oh.
so I pulled the thing off.
Oh.
But I can fix it.
All right. So this one, now Kim, I will say, I need practice. Yes. Yeah. Let me see if I can make this bigger. This is a difficult one.
Fixed it. Boom.
Oops. This is somewhat difficult because there is a fair bit of breathing in on this one. So.
She's back.
But that should be a little bit bigger. And we'll try it again. So one that I would probably recommend, hey Jerry, looking forward to meeting you. Come on, Potato.
She knocked down the Klingon ship. Oh no!
She broke the Enterprise.
Come sit with me.
Yeah. So one thing that I generally, one thing that I have found works quite fun actually. This was probably the 4th or 5th song we started doing.
Here. I'll sit right there.
This is not Wonderwall.
Alright everybody, here's Wonderwall.
This is When the Saints Go Marching In. And this one is a little bit easier to do. Putting this out there, Kim will know this one. Oh, sure. Says, I love cats, but my husband is allergic. Thanks for bringing Potato. So one of the things we like to do when we're trying to work on or select songs and that sort of thing, we have to find songs that are relatively easy to play and relatively easy to understand. As you can see with these numbers, sometimes we have tabs that go up and down, or arrows that go up and down. Sometimes we use plus and minus, and the default here for this particular website is the plus minus, and then if it's a positive number, we just forget the plus. Kind of like if you think back to math class, any number that didn't have a negative sign is assumed to be positive. So when you have those positive notes, those positive numbers like the 4 to start us off there, you blow out. Each one of the harmonica things or valves or slots or whatever we want to call it is labeled with a number. So we blow out or we draw in. So hopefully I have had a little bit more practice with this one. So that was actually some of the best harmonica I've ever done, if I say so myself. We'll do that one more time.
Potato thinks so too.
Potato's enjoying that. And people are enjoying Potato, I think. So.
Here you go.
Ah, I got too cocky. Let's start from the top there again.
That's how it feels. Ooh. Don't pretend. Nope.
Oh.
Oh, Potato.
All right.
Careful.
What number am I on? This whole thing is just completely falling apart now. Please, all right, Potato, say goodbye to your millions of adoring fans. Potato is going to head back upstairs now. Thank you very much, Emma. Appreciate that.
Yep. Oh, thank you.
All right. So, and thank you again, Emma, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
We'll see you later for some cake.
Ooh.
So one more time with a little bit more focus. There we go. I feel good about that one again. So that is another round of harmonicas for health. And it really can be a good workout. And so that's the that's kind of the essence of it. We got a request from Joe. What do we have here? And the beauty of this thing also is when you're not doing harmonicas for health in a class or in a group or a duet or what have you, all of this stuff can be found online. So Joe has found us Emma's Waltz, which I do not know. But let's see. Joe, you'll have to tell me if this one is worthwhile. I don't know this song at all. So I don't know if that's good or not. Oh, and there's a lot more to it. Let's see. I don't know how well I'll be able to get the volume going without too much feedback. All right, well, sounded okay. But I will definitely bring that up for Emma again when we get upstairs. Maybe that will be our duet for next week. So thanks, Joe, for that suggestion. Appreciate that. Emma took Potato back up outside the old studio here because Potato is kind of a menace. Her nickname, believe it or not, cats have nicknames, is the Gremlin because she does a lot of stuff. She actually walked by and I'm sure people will remember pulled the network cable out of the computer last week. That was one of our technical issues, but that is what it is. So. We got started a bit late. We're running a little bit late, but we've probably got about another 10 minutes or so before we will call this one a night. I will say, did get an email earlier today from the COPD Foundation that said that yesterday's Day of Giving, the Giving Tuesday, was a success. So thank you for anybody who was able to donate to the COPD Foundation, the American Respiratory Care Foundation, or any other charity of your choice. Very much appreciated. In this time right now, we've all got to be banding together and getting a lot of stuff done. I did actually end up even picking up one subscriber to my Patreon yesterday, so appreciate Jamie checking in and supporting what we're doing here. If you would like to do that, I can certainly get you the information for that. To Shar's point, I would love to be able to do this stuff full time and to be able to do Zoom house calls and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully someday in the near future we'll be able to get to that point. Been fortunate that I've been able to do a lot of that work from home. Have not been able to see a lot of my in-person patients, which is kind of a bummer, but I am a believer that a lot of these telehealth things can be very effective going forward. We have a lot of folks who aren't able to participate in the telehealth very well for a variety of reasons. Be they technological. For example, a lot of folks that come to our clinic generally don't have maybe reliable internet access and that sort of thing, so it can be a challenge for them. But I do believe that telehealth is a huge thing going forward and will be of great benefit for a lot of people, and I hope to be able to be a part of that. So any last questions for telehealth or anything like that? Telehealth, COPD, any of those kinds of things are certainly fair game right now. We'll take one quick spin. I have been trying to get at another email I got recently was from CHEST, the journal for the American College of Chest Physicians. Just had a new whatchamacallit, a new journal come out, new issue of their journal come out. So I wanted to take a peek at there. One of the things that it mentioned, I will admit to having a little bit of bias and self-interest in this, is it did talk about the need for additional advanced practice respiratory therapists and additional non-physician providers to help our pulmonologists to do a better job getting information from groups like CHEST and the COPD Foundation and GOLD and all these other groups out to the people that need it. Best practices and everything else going on. Certainly very necessary, and hopefully we can see that. And interesting, they've got a point counterpoint this month about the use of eosinophils in COPD, probably appropriate for asthma month. We talk a lot about eosinophils in asthma. They can be a marker of inflammation. The pro side to this is by two physicians, Dr. R. Chad Wade and Dr. J. Michael Wells. Trying to see if there's a quick conclusions and takeaways. So the presence of the eosinophilic inflammation indicates a distinct pathophysiological phenotype in COPD with a differential risk profile in response to therapy. So this probably is kind of one of those things where they're talking more about like what has traditionally been called the asthma COPD overlap syndrome, or what was the word that I was trying to use yesterday for it? The asthma COPD interface or something like that. Shoot, I should have written it down. I have decided to keep a journal near the studio here because I should have written this down yesterday. The asthma intersection? Oh, whatever it was. That's probably these groups here, the folks with COPD who still have some kind of inflammation going on, the reactive airways stuff, and trying to figure out what if this is a whole separate phenotype and how we can kind of do a better job of dividing or aligning care for that. Now, the counterpoint was written by one of the, if there's a Mount Rushmore of COPD, Jerry Kreiner is probably on there, Dr. Gerald Kreiner from Temple University. Crossover. Okay. Asthma COPD crossover. I think you're right. And I was going to say, what works really well with a journal is a pen, which I just so happen to have, highlighting my friends in respiratory care from last year, Your Breathing Matters. So we're going to have asthma COPD crossover. So, and if you have any other pearls for me to write down in my book of wisdom here, that would be fantastic. But in the meantime, Dr. Kreiner's counterpoint is that eosinophils are not useful. And let's see why. His take, he's just, so this isn't quite as bullet pointed. So he brings up some good points. Much of the data that forms the basis for the association of blood eosinophil levels with exacerbation rates comes from after-the-fact analyses of randomized controlled trials conducted in patients prone to repeated exacerbations. So his argument is the data is by nature flawed because we have already a group that has other exacerbations. So we don't, it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing. Are people having inflammation or extra exacerbations because of the eosinophils, or are the eosinophils a response to having all these exacerbations? Hard to say. Studies conducted in observational cohorts failed to demonstrate any consistent relationship with eosinophil levels and clinical outcomes or treatment response. So if you look forward, you don't. If you look back, it's kind of like the whole, if you're looking for trouble, you tend to find it. If you're looking at old data, then you may be able to see relationships. But if you're looking at new data, you may be drawing false conclusions. So tells us that when to measure is not clear. At most, based on after-the-fact analyses of clinical trial data in patients with a prior history of frequent or severe exacerbations, elevation of eosinophil levels indicates a better response to inhaled corticosteroids and biologic anti-eosinophil therapies. Oh, excuse me. Blood sugar, speaking of blood sugar is getting a little bit low. And we have too many confounding factors right now. We don't see the impact of comorbid conditions, biological sex, race, exercise. So still a lot of unknowns, and too much to actually have any real sense about whether this is guiding care or not. So that's definitely an interesting debate. And there's rebuttals and all that stuff that I will dive into in a little bit deeper level, and see if there's any other clinical pearls of wisdom to get in there. But good to know. Shar says, here in Canada, they care what the duck looks like, so I really don't know what kind of COPD I have. That is an idiom that I don't know. They care what the duck looks like. So I'm guessing this is one of those things that they really... where they maybe they really want to put a particular number on it, and so we don't really get into the phenotypes and all that stuff. Not sure what the duck looks like means, but fun fact: my kids' band instructors, their main band instructor, Mr. Stout, is from Minnesota, and apparently in Minnesota, which is apparently unique to pretty much anywhere else, certainly in the U.S., but the game Duck, Duck, Goose is actually called Duck, Duck, Gray Duck. And so he dropped that on the kids at the beginning of their first band camp, and nobody knew what was going on. So don't care to do a lot of testing. Oh, okay. Don't care to do a lot of testing, so maybe autocorrect hit that one again. Autocorrect strikes again. That's unfortunate because, you've got to. There's a balance. I am a huge believer in the Buddhist concept of the middle way. It's important to do some testing, but yes, I agree that you can get caught up in what some of the testing is, and getting too narrowed down. Again, we've gotten into that in the U.S. a bit too, where we is it asthma COPD overlap? Is it COPD with asthma? Is it stage 1? Is it this? Is it that? Is the practical therapy going to change all that much? Not necessarily. So I go back to my go-to analogy is the jigsaw puzzle, because each one of these tests gives us some of the picture. Spirometry gives us one piece. COPD assessment test or St. George's questionnaire gives us another piece. Dyspnea scores give us another piece. 6-minute walk test gives us another piece. Pulse oximetry gives us another piece. If you get 5 out of 6 pieces, you can probably see most of the picture, and you might not need that 6th piece. It might not change anything. It might not change your perception of it. But it might if you're having other things. So you got to find that middle way, that path between too much testing and not enough testing, and try to figure out how to get this stuff done the right way. So thank you for bringing that perspective. It is always fascinating to see the different perspectives in different national healthcare systems. Our American system, the UK system, the Canadian system, not just the political intrigue and all that stuff, but how different areas look at their different strategies for testing and management and all that stuff. So thank you for bringing that in, Shar. So as we're coming up on about 5:23 here, we're going to start wrapping things up a bit. Again, tomorrow we'll be back hopefully at 4 o'clock, and hopefully with a fully operational Battle Studio. Still going with some Star Wars jokes, Star Wars references for May the 4th earlier this week. Let's see, was it? Well, nope. I can't remember how to do it without looking at it, but should be operational again tomorrow. It is a little bit more comfortable, although it is distinctly colder. I don't know. I have a little bit more room to maneuver. I was able to put up some more soundproofing and stuff. Maybe the heat from the lights. I don't know exactly what's going on, but a little bit colder, but still pretty comfortable. In any event, we'll be back 4 o'clock tomorrow for house call, and then 7 o'clock tomorrow night on that Zoom conference. I will be around also on Facebook, obviously, if people in the group or on YouTube or where have you are interested in joining and having trouble. I'll be around to do a little bit of technical support and all that stuff to make sure that everybody can get in. So I look forward to seeing as many people as I can tomorrow night. May end up inviting some of my RT friends too, just to see if this thing works and to get some other clinical opinions. We got a lot of folks interested in COPD, and I think this is going to take off going forward. I got a couple of pending questions in the group right now about how as we start seeing people recover from COVID-19, the disease that's caused by this novel coronavirus. We're starting to get an idea of what the future might look like, and there are some evidence that we might be looking at some kind of pulmonary fibrosis-like conditions. But, a lot of times these are in folks that have not really much of a pre-existing lung condition, because all of you out there with pre-existing lung conditions are doing exactly what you're supposed to do and staying home and staying isolated and all that stuff. So it's been, we don't have as much data on the folks with lung conditions as maybe without, and so that might be a little bit different. But we've got a lot to look forward to with that. So awareness of chronic lung conditions is going to be tremendous going forward. Getting used to all of these tele platforms is going to be important. And so I look forward to discussing all of this with all of you. So looking forward to meeting some of you potentially for the first time face-to-face, screen-to-screen at least, tomorrow night on Zoom. I'll be posting links for that throughout the evening, and then tomorrow as reminders and all that stuff. Plus, there's if you sign up various places, you should be able to get a reminder. So be around tomorrow night. Of course, we'll be back for house call tomorrow at 4 p.m. I'm sure we'll be talking about it again there too. As Joe mentions, John Williams' masterpieces took a lot of practice, as you can very well see, but we'll be continuing with that through the summer, and we'll be roping in the rest of the Becker-Hess clan here to see what else we can do with the harmonica and what other instruments we can get into. We've got a lot of musicians in the family. Emma is a trombonist by training. Tommy plays the trumpet. Joey hasn't found his thing yet. He might be more of a singer guy. He's done some choir stuff. He's looking at maybe getting into some dance, that sort of thing. I'm not sure where he's going to end up, but we've got a lot of musical talent that comes from elsewhere than me. So, with all of that said, I apologize once again for all the tech problems to get things started today. I appreciate everybody who hung in there with me and got everything going. Linda, thank you for all you do and your advocacy work with Alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. Hopefully we will once again be able to have some golf outings for all these causes again. Linda does a great one in central Michigan to raise awareness for the genetic type of COPD. Hopefully we'll be able to get that stuff rolling again before too long. But in the meantime, I do hope that you're all taking care of yourselves and taking care of each other. I hope that you're staying strong and staying home and staying safe. And I hope that I will see you again tomorrow. Until then, my name is Mike Hess. I'm the COPD dude. And I hope you all out there continue to breathe lightly. So take care and see you tomorrow.